Stefan Wolff is a professor of international security at the University of Birmingham, and he joins me now for more on these peace talks. Coming out of the first day of talks yesterday, both Ukraine and Russia seemed to say there was some progress. Do we have any idea where exactly that progress might be?
Well, I think there are two issues where progress is reasonably good at the moment. One was already mentioned in your correspondence report, and that is the prisoner exchange that now seems to have been confirmed as 314 prisoners going to be exchanged between the sides in the coming days. The other issue concerns broadly military arrangements. In particular, there seem to have been discussions now at a very concrete technical level in terms of what a ceasefire would mean, whether that would mean actual withdrawal of forces, how it might be monitored, who might be invited to do the monitoring. So all of that, I think, is quite clearly important, and it's in particular noteworthy that it lays down some of the groundwork, especially the technical military groundwork that will need to be in place once an actual breakthrough is achieved on the much more tricky political issues.
Right. And one of the most difficult sticking points at the moment does still seem to be over territory. Russia, of course, formally annexed 4 regions of Ukraine back in 2022. It still doesn't fully control them after nearly 4 years of fighting. Is keeping those regions a red line for Russia?
Well, I mean, that's tricky to decide right now because what Russia now refers to as the so-called anchorage formula seems to offer a degree of compromise, namely that Ukraine would give up the remainder of the Donetsk region, and Russia in turn would agree that it would freeze the current front lines in Zaporizhia and Kherson regions. Now, from a Ukrainian perspective, this is still a complete non-starter for 2 reasons. One is that Ukraine has invested a lot in actually defending this territory in Donbass. And second of all, withdrawing its forces from there now would basically hand over to Russia very important fortifications that Ukraine has built there over the past couple of years, and therefore make Ukraine much more vulnerable should Russia eventually decide that maybe it doesn't want to stick to a ceasefire agreement.
Right. So what happens? Let's say that Zelensky doesn't cede that territory. Russia says we must have that territory. I mean, where does it go from there?
Well, it seems to be going from there, from the Kremlin's perspective, is that they are in no rush to make an agreement here. Because Vladimir Putin, the Russian president, seems to be fairly confident that eventually he will be able to take this territory by force. Now, having said that, that might be the Russian calculation, but it's going to take them a long, long time. The current rate of progress, most estimates are that Russia would probably take another year of fighting before it controls all of Donbass. And that obviously presumes that Russia will have both the economic ability to sustain its war effort, but also be able to recruit sufficient numbers of troops that it can throw into the very pitched infantry battles on the ground.
Now, these talks are being mediated by the U.S. Volodymyr Zelensky has said that Vladimir Putin is afraid of Trump, that only Donald Trump can help move the needle on this issue. Do you agree?
Well, I think it would be reasonable to assume that if Donald Trump actually wanted to move things forward, he would put a lot more pressure on Vladimir Putin. I mean, another sanctions bill has been stuck in the US Senate now since late spring last year, simply because Trump doesn't want to move on that front. There have been no further discussions about the delivery of more advanced US weapon systems, in particular long-range Tomahawk missiles that were discussed last autumn. So on all of those fronts, the US clearly has the leverage if it wants to exercise it. It just doesn't seem to be very high on Donald Trump's agenda to do so.
Indeed. And of course, one key point for Ukraine are post-war security guarantees, which in part would have to come from the United States. Just to wrap up, tell us a bit more about what Ukraine wants exactly and if it will get it.
Well, where we are on the security talks at the moment is that there seems to be a plan in place that would involve both European and ultimately American military involvement if Russia were to break or violate the terms of a future ceasefire agreement. Now, this is very important for Ukraine, but at the same time, it also seems to be a red line for Russia. So apart from territory, the future security guarantees for Ukraine are the other major sticking point in the current negotiations, and there seems to be no progress on either of those two issues.
Stefan, thank you for taking the time to speak to us. Stefan Wolff, there, professor of international security at the University of Birmingham.